It wasn't until I hit rock bottom, and my rock bottom was sitting in a point where I was losing everything around me, and I'm making a great income, but everything, my whole world is being sucked underneath me. I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. So for me to get to the heights I want to get to, I realized that I'm going to have to, like I was talking about building a power team. My power team is going to be built with mostly mentors. It's not going to be the realtors. It's not going to be the accountant. It's not going to be the lawyers. It's going to be an amazing team of mentors. It's like an F1 vehicle. You got your specialists on the tires, your shocks, your brakes. And what they're doing is they're making sure that this vehicle wins.
Problems are what? Problems are profits!
Welcome to the Problems or Profits podcast. Today we have special guest 7-2 mindset investor, aka Mark Smith, on the podcast today. And I really want to introduce what problems or profits means to me. So for me, problems or profits means overcoming any obstacle that's thrown your way and actually working towards a solution rather than just giving up. So really striving towards success over time. So that's what problems or profits means to me. And I'm really excited to have Mark Smith on the podcast because he is definitely exemplary of this problems or profits mindset and mentality in all that he does in business. So welcome to the podcast, Mark.
No, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Rebecca. This is, very flattering.
Awesome. Well, we'll start off with our kind of core 3 warm-up questions here, Mark. And so the first warm-up question is, what's the most expensive thing you've ever broken?
I don't say it's broken. I'd say the most expensive thing I need to fix. And that has been me. That has been me. Absolutely. So for example, I've invested over $100,000 already in coaching and masterminds and this kind of stuff. I have proclaimed or pledged I'll be spending $1 million on my personal development. So I was broken, but I needed to spend money to fix it. And that's me.
Absolutely. Awesome. That leads me well into our next warm-up question, which is, if you had $1 million and only 24 hours to spend it before it disappears, what would you do with it?
I would actually donate it. I would actually go around and I would actually give it to people that need it more than me. I don't need it. If I'm gone in 24 hours, it's meaningless to me. So I'd be out there and I'd be giving it, making sure the people they need it, making sure my family's taken care of and the people in dire need, and the ones that are actually going to make impact with it. That's what I want. I want that dollar to go a long way. So it'd be impact.
Awesome. And then final question here, Mark, is why are you?
There's no other fucking choice. I have to. I lived 40 years being in another person's body and not being myself. That wasn't fun, man. I have had don't get me wrong, I've had great experiences and so forth. And as I told someone last night, one of the hardest things I have to do is divorce my old self. So when you rebuild yourself, recreate yourself, and instead of searching for who I am, I'm simply creating who I want to be.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate that. And maybe just kind of building upon that, I really see problems or profits and the 7-2 mindset not necessarily as that dissimilar. So do you mind maybe first starting us off with what 7-2 mindset means to you? And
yeah, absolutely. So, and to go back to problems or profits, when I first heard problems or profits, I really didn't I didn't really understand where it went until I started going my own journey with the whole 7-2. And so there's this adage that says, you can't control the hands you're dealt, but you can control how you play that hand. And in life and in poker, the 7-2 is the worst possible hand. Statistically speaking, if you're pulling a 7-2 on when the first draw of the cards, your likelihood of success is going to be very limited. And in life, we're dealt many bad hands. COVID is a great indication. The whole world was dealt a 7-2. So we're given a choice. Do we play that hand or we fold? Do we play and be the victor or do we be the victim? And I decided that with the 7-2, just play that hand. So I played that motherfucker, and that's why I'm here today. And when I look at problems or profits, it's so similar. I mean, you can either look at it as a problem, or how do you play that problem, or how do you come with a solution to that problem and turn it into a profit. So yeah, they're very, very similar. So, and for me, that's been my whole branding thing. It's just a reminder to myself is, hey, you can fold or you can play that hand. And you have a
Absolutely.
choice.
I really appreciate that. And what I'd like to hear, Mark, is just a little bit more of your backstory and what led you to the point that you're at right now. How did you get here?
Yeah. How did I get here? So to give you some background information about myself, I came from the medical industry. So I actually practiced in healthcare. In fact, my specialty was dealing with these type of patients you're seeing with COVID. So very sick in the ICU. I was an RT, respiratory therapist, and I got into the sales world. So I was in high ticket sales for over 20 years. Interestingly enough, I was actually selling ICU ventilators. I was selling anesthesia machines. I was selling critical care equipment. And it was really conceptual selling, and it was a different type of sale because although it was high ticket, I could be selling, you can have one anesthesia machine here and another right here. They both aren't going to harm the patient, and they're both going to serve its purpose, but you have to be able to differentiate one from the other. And it came down from the ambiance and really how you made the customer feel and everything like that. And that was something I really just made a strong effort on. And I was very successful in the medical sales side. I would break through all my quotas, double up quotas, but then through all that time, even prior to that, all my life, I was a yes person. I had to say yes to everybody. I had to be the most popular kid in school. I had to be the one that would throw parties, and it was just more because I felt so empty in the inside, and for whatever reason in life. And so I went through this journey and my own issues, and I take full ownership of them. No one else's issues. These were my issues, and it caused a lot of pain for others. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom, and my rock bottom was sitting in a point where I was losing everything around me, and I'm like making a great income, but my whole world is being sucked underneath me. I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. I think it's Tony Robbins that says success without fulfillment is failure. And I had that failure, and I just felt like, what am I going to do here in the midst of a real nasty divorce? Trying to clear my name in a criminal case. And there was a lot of other stuff that was happening. And I just felt like what a horrible father I am that my kids have been pulled into a real nasty divorce case and a collateral damage. So I hit this real low point, and that's where that 7-2 moment really came from, Rebecca, where I said, okay, enough's enough. I can either play this hand and go hard at it, or I'm going to be a victim the rest of my life. And at that moment, I decided to play that hand. And it was a bold decision to get into real estate investing. So I did this wrong because depends how you look at it. I got into real estate investing because I was looking at a lot of my net worth had been swallowed up, legal bills, over $200,000. And what do I need to do here? And I said, okay, well, real estate has to be the way to go. That's the quickest way to get to get back to my net worth. So I got into the whole real estate side, but I did it like most real estate investors do. They do it blindly, and they do it because they think they know what they're doing, and they refuse to ask for help. Okay. So I was going at the old fashioned way. You work all day, slave away, save up money for your down payment. I said, so after, getting 4 properties within 8 months, which is very fast, I hit that wall faster. That's all it was. I hit that wall in mortgages, and I'm scratching my head and I'm saying, how does Matt McKeever get 100 properties and the bank's telling me I can't? Because I just didn't know any better. And I didn't say it from a scarcity standpoint. I'm like, there has to be a different way. And I was blessed that I met Matt at a Right Club meeting. Himself and Shahir were there. And I remember meeting Matt for the first time and just engaging in a conversation. And it was probably a month later that I was invited to Matt's place to speak about the mastermind and really getting into a real close-knit room. And when I entered that room, that was the real game changer for me, because I realized my issue wasn't real estate. My issue was my mindset. I was a broken human being. So it didn't matter how much wealth I was accumulating around me. All that money was going to do was amplify the broken individual I was. So I needed to fix what was between my ears first, which was fixing my mindset. And since doing that, it's been amazing because I've come to realize that's the only ROI you can control is what you put in between your ears. If I read a book and if I don't do nothing with that book, that ROI is zero. But if I take that book and I take some teaching from it and I apply it, well, my ROI is going to be significant. So, and that's where it really stemmed. And it's like connecting the dots backwards. So I talk about that is the people I've met. Like I remember meeting Matt at there. I mean, that was a pivotal moment, connecting the dots backwards. And this is where I am today. Like it's just been a complete transformation. And now I've been able to leverage my skill set, my talent of high ticket sales, and now drive that in our business now. And it's been amazing. I mean, in 2021, I'm projected to hit the $100 million. That was always my thing, is $100 million in high ticket sales. If I encompass all the different sales things I've done, I'm definitely on that path for that. And that's monumental for me. But I wouldn't have been able to do that. I think, Matt says it best. What took you to get to a certain point is not necessarily going to be able to take you to that next level. So I needed that push. I needed that high level of accountability to push to that next level. When we hit 100 million, well, it's not going to stop there. It's now like, how do we get to 500 million? And that's been the journey, Rebecca. It's just, how do I continuously improve on myself? How do I continuously tap into the inner potential? Because the potential is there. How do I unleash it?
Yeah. And building upon that, Mark, when you're kind of talking about what got me here won't necessarily get me there, I view that also as a different, like discussing the difference in kind versus a difference in degree. And so that difference in kind often is difficult for people to really lean into. And so earlier in the discussion, you talked about divorcing your old self. Would you mind just kind of exploring those two concepts and maybe how they're related?
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about divorcing myself. It was my old self, which was the yes person, putting other people's dreams in front of my own, putting other people's dreams in front of my own, making everybody happy, living that life of not being fulfilled, not focusing on me, not being selfish on me. When I say selfish on me, not meaning I'm going to go take something and go gamble with it, but more my own time, my personal time. And the time being the kicker. Time. I was giving other people time, but I wasn't protecting my time. And the divorcing myself was a lot of bad habits. It was a lot of bad habits, Matt. It was a lot of the engineered programming that was inside of me that I actually had to remove, because this engineering, this wiring, so to speak, was affecting my thought process, which was affecting my feelings, which was then affecting my actions. So divorcing myself had to be critical, and I had to make some bold decisions. I've actually had to remove people from my circle. And I joked about this morning with someone and saying, the old, when you're dating someone, you want to break up with them, saying, it's not you, it's me. And now I say, no, it's you, it's not me. Like, you don't fit. And making some really bold decisions. And it goes back to why I'm doing it, and really pushing on the why is I got one kick at this. And if there's any legacy I could leave for my children, it's saying it's not about what was gained and that kind of stuff, but at least he took a shot and he was going to break the curse. He was going to single-handedly change the trajectory of where this family can go. And I didn't want to put that burden on my children or my grandchildren. So to answer your question, Matt, whether it was in kind, I just don't know where that fits, to be honest with you. I just come from more of an emotional state with that. And that's where it all stemmed from.
Well, I guess so. To kind of what I was alluding to there is simply that making a big change is difficult if you're not really committed to it, I guess. And that idea of divorcing your old life or creating maybe some separation from who you were and who you want to be can often really allow people or grant them permission to go and do that more extreme thing or the more extreme version of themselves. And
Yes.
so it's very rare that friends or family are going to give you permission to change drastically. And again, this is often just comes from a risk bias, right? So they overweight the risk and they underweight the potential reward of you going through a transformation. And I think that that's really a challenge that a lot of individuals that decide they really want to take control of their life. I see, problems or profits or the 7-2 mindset, either way, is really being about individual agency, taking control of your personal life and being in the driver's seat. And I think for a lot of people to truly take ownership of that driver's seat does require some sort of separation or divorce from the previous version of yourself, because oftentimes that individual or framework that you've created was often by happenstance or accident, where at some point in life, I think there comes a moment where you can really you have the awareness or the humility to realize you could rebuild or recreate yourself, but it won't necessarily be an easy endeavor. And so I know for myself, like I can remember distinctly a moment where, similar to kind of what you said, I like broke up with a certain social circle, and it wasn't even a reflection of them being bad people. In fact, I think they were great people, but they just weren't necessarily going to push or didn't have the same hunger for growth or change as I did. And I know the way that I chose to approach that was simply having a conversation and saying, like, I've really enjoyed who I've been up until this point and the journey up until this moment in time, but I want to continue on the journey. And I can see that we're probably headed in two different directions, and this is probably an inflection point. And I really believe that this next part of the journey or this direction for me is really important. I also understand that it's going to be natural for friction to come up if I start to, step outside of the bounds of what used to be normal for us as a collective versus what I'm hoping to become my new normal. And it can be really easy for individuals to, like, when you're having this discussion with someone that you care about, for them to maybe view it through a personal lens of judgment or anything like that. But for me, again, you do have one shot at this life, right? It's extremely important that you take it seriously and you lean into every opportunity that you believe is the right choice for you. And again, I just think it's so difficult if that network isn't really supportive of personal growth. And so if they're not proactively supporting, they're almost inherently going to cause friction and slow you down on your personal journey. Again, it doesn't mean that you need to go cold turkey with these individuals. Oftentimes it can just be a managing of the relationships or a tweak of the process. Maybe it used to be every Friday night you drank with them, and now you decided once a month you can probably get the same sort of value and same sort of relationship versus doing it 4 times a month. And so that's really just what I kind of want to hit home on, because I hear that in what you're saying, but I'm just not sure if we were explicitly spelling it out for the audience. I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, no one ever gets in a relationship thinking it's going to end. Even your relationship with yourself, no one ever expects it's going to come to an end. And I love what you said there, because divorce just doesn't happen. If we're going to use an analogy of divorce in a marriage, there has to be a separation first. And there's steps on there as you start building, whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. But there is that extension till you get to that ultimate divorce. And it's during that time you're really learning about yourself. And so I appreciate you explaining it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a part of this really aligns with my next kind of question here, Mark, is I love this philosophy of putting your house in order. And it's something that I've seen you do, not only in your personal relationships and who you're spending time with, but also just in all aspects of your mindset, of your health, of your financial well-being. So of that, like, how do you perceive the next few years to go for you? Because you've completely changed your trajectory and you've really focused on putting your house in order. So how do you now build off of that foundation, and what elements do you see coming up next?
Yeah, that I love that question. And that's a question I ask myself a lot, Rebecca. And so it's the seasonality and the trajectory that I have gone in, and it's just the result of the people that I've surrounded myself with. Okay, so I'm blessed that I'm able to surround myself with you, Rebecca, with Matt, with Ben, with other people like Corey McKinnon, everybody. Like, I've been able to really surround myself, and most importantly is my family, So Zara, my partner, Alex, my business partner, like there's this whole group that we're all pushing. But there's also that seasonality. And as we were talking about before, you may have this that could take you to a certain level, but there could be a level where I need that extra kick. So for example, it's like someone getting a gym membership, for example. Now, Rebecca, coming from the fitness industry. Well, someone goes and gets a membership at the gym and they're saying, hey, we're going to give you 2 free personal coaching lessons or whatever it is. So you get there, they get you going. But now you start taking this thing a little bit more seriously and you're like, okay, I need to get someone else to be my accountability or be my coach or be my mentor. Now they're going to get you a little bit more dialed in. Now you're saying, hey, I want to compete in a bodybuilding competition. Okay, well, I need to hire another type of coach because it's just a different season they're in. Okay, now I want to run a marathon. Okay, now I got to get a coach that can help me run a marathon. So in actual fact, I believe it's finding that mentor or coach for that season that you're in. So for me to get to the heights I want to get to, I realized that I'm going to have to, like I was talking about building your power team. My power team is going to be built with mostly mentors. It's not going to be the realtors. It's not going to be the accountant. It's not going to be the lawyers. It's going to be an amazing team of mentors. And simply, they're all going to have their piece that is important. It's like an F1 vehicle. You got your specialists on the tires, your shocks, your brakes. And what they're doing is they're making sure that this vehicle wins.
Absolutely. I love that. And to build off of that, an analogy that I've heard in the past has been kind of the seats at your table. So in one seat, you might have that mentor for a specific category or area. You might have some people that are a little bit closer, that person that you go to for X advice going on in your personal life, the person that you go to for, that mentorship of that specific skill or project that you're building. So given those seats at your table, who's missing right now for you that will help you really move to that next level?
That's a phenomenal question. The person that's missing at that table, I believe there's 2 people missing at that table. It's my hero, which is me in 10 years from now. And 2, I've never talked about this. Man, I'm going to get emotional on this. I haven't talked about this before. My grandfather, who I didn't know, and my family had a lot of wealth back in East Africa where they came, and now what I'm telling you is simply the stories that I heard along the way. But there was a lot of wealth. The family itself owned the marketplace in a town called Dar es Salaam, which is the most populated area in Eastern Africa. So the whole marketplace downtown was owned by them. And the family had a major fight and ego got in the way. And my grandfather pissed away all his money, gambling, drinking. I have uncles and aunts that tell me that at one point we were on the trajectory that to this day we'd be driven around in Rolls Royces. There was so much ego that they would actually take money, significant amounts of money, put tobacco and light them as a thing of ego to tell people like how much money they had. So the reason I love to have my grandfather there is what happened. Like, what happened at that point? Because as someone goes through a trajectory of wealth, there's going to be things that are going to come along the way that can get people to pivot. So to prevent that from happening, I'm not saying that would happen to me, but just say the what if questions, like what was the trajectory? So I think I would love to learn that. I love history, and that was a different period of time. So I'd have 2 people at that table.
Interesting, Mark. Really appreciate that. I guess kind of moving in a different direction, you deal with a lot of new real estate investors, a lot of aspiring real estate investors, a lot of people that are looking to start or compound their real estate investing journey. Is there a common problem or obstacle you seem to find them encountering on a regular basis?
Yeah, absolutely. Many are not willing to put in the work. I think there's a lot that are just looking for, they're watching the headlines on social media. Social media is like a weapon of mass destruction. So everybody's looking at, oh, this person has this person has that. And everybody's looking for the quick scheme to get there. And one has to realize they got to pay their dues. They got to pay their dues. When Matt and Jeff and your partners are celebrating some apartments, no one sees the hard work and the sweat and the tears and the blood that came from how many years before that, and it really came from that first door or that first house hack to be where you're at. And I think most people are in this now moment versus what do I need to do to grow a portfolio versus I want a portfolio now. So I think a lot of people have high expectations. Number one. Two is they don't want to put in the work. And three is I believe a lot of people that want to get into real estate investing or grow their portfolio are unwilling to invest in themselves. And one must realize that you, the individual, is the most important investment. You're the asset. And so I tell people is that if you're expecting other people to invest in you, how can you expect that if you're unwilling to invest in yourself? So that's either one of two things. Either you lack confidence in yourself, or two, you're too cheap. And usually those are going to be related anyways, because if you're too cheap to invest in yourself, there's an underlying concern there saying, hey, there's a confidence issue. So I'm a firm believer is that I'm willing to spend money on myself. I'm willing to spend money on my growth because I would buy from me and I trust myself and I'm confident in myself. I'm willing to spend $100,000 on personal branding. And people say, well, what's the ROI on that? And it doesn't matter. I'm willing to do that by putting that out there because I believe in myself. I have that confidence. Now, that didn't come overnight. I had to put in the work and I had to get in that small room where my mentors had to kick me in the head and saying, don't be an idiot. Like, this is not going to take you far. Like, you have to think about this. You have to focus on your mindset. Check your ego at the door. So that would be my thing. And people ask me, what's the number one thing you need to do? And I say, get a mentor. And number two is listen to rule number one. No, a mentor doesn't have to be getting and paying to get in a room because I get it. It's going to be tough for some people. But what else are you doing? A mentor could be Napoleon Hill. A mentor could be Robert Kiyosaki. A mentor could be a group by going into a networking meeting. It could be just coming to a Problems or Profits, listening to the podcast. It could be coming to the weekly webinars and just being there. But most importantly is taking whatever you learn and putting into action. Also, I believe there's a lot of people coming into this and they don't lead with value. They come as leechers. Hey, Matt, can I pick your brain? Hey, Jeff, I need comparables. It's like, first of all, who are you? And it's like, well, you have everything. So I push on new investors and I say, you have to lead with value. Bring something to the table. You lead with value. That's going to be so much your paycheck. You can write your own paycheck. Just start with leading with value and bring value all day long. That's what's missing.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I personally think part of the disconnect as well that fits in with that is people focusing on the results rather than the process. So really wanting just like the Instagram post where you get to flex rather than understanding that it actually is just about improving yourself, improving your abilities, and playing that game of golf against yourself.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And Matt, I mean, we've talked about this many times, which is the leads versus laggards. And I think many people just can't get over the leads. They don't realize it's a daily consistent actions. It's going to be the actions you take on a daily basis that's going to take you to those laggards. So one has a choice. They can either go to downtown Toronto and rent out a simulation of a jet and take pictures of themselves being in there and pursing their lips, or in front of someone's Lamborghini saying, hey, look at me, versus focusing on the daily consistent action so they can actually own that jet or own that Lamborghini.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of big goals, what is your big, hairy, audacious goal right now?
So I've thrown this out there, and I threw it out there just for the sake. I believe in master like big goals, and Matt knows what this is. And I threw out the B word. And no, I didn't tell people I want to be a bitch. I said I want to be a billionaire. And I threw it out there, and for me, it's not the wealth of the monetary aspect of it. I believe that when the monetary and the intrinsic value of money to me is freedom. Wealth to me means freedom. Wealth to me means saying I can say no all day long. So that's the one aspect of it. The second thing, which is really going to be intangible, is I want to be invincible. I want to be limitless. I want, in that limitless, meaning like we have so much potential inside of us. I want to, like, I use this as an example, Rebecca. It's like taking a toothpaste tube and I want to squeeze every drop of potential out of me. So when I hit the ground and I'm 6 feet under, there is nothing left. And I live a life fulfilled. Now that means I'm squeezing everything out with my relationships with Zara, my relationship with my children, everything, all aspects. That would be my big thing. Now, there's no measuring stick for that, right? I'll find a measuring stick eventually, but that's my big one right there.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mark. And then I'd love to hear, is there currently a problem you're encountering that could easily be turned into a profit? Maybe you're just too busy for it. Maybe it's not important enough. Maybe you've got better opportunities. But for someone listening, is there something that you've been kind of staring at that you know there's an opportunity there?
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually reading a great book by Jay Samit, and Future Proofing Yourself. And he actually talks about this. It's a fantastic exercise, which is for the next 30 days, every day you write down 3 problems. But the problems, they have to be different problems. It's not like, hey, the problem is I want to, I'm just trying to think. Here, it can't be like I want world peace and that kind of stuff. It has to be a problem. Like, for example, I need to find a better broom or something like that. But finding, and what are you going to do about it? So you go through that so essentially at the end of 30 days, you have 90 problems that you have on there. I believe if I had a wish list right now, it would be someone that could give me more time back. Okay. In any way or form, which is, and that's what we're doing. We're hiring people for that. But in terms of a real problem, yeah, I'd have to think about that. Like there's many problems. I shouldn't say problems. I'll call them obstacles. I don't see the problems. I want someone to solve an obstacle for me. Man, Matt, that's a great question. I'd have to think deep on that. Yeah, because what I'm finding, Matt, is anytime I encounter a problem, I'm quickly realizing I can hire someone out for that problem. So maybe I'm looking. Maybe I'm looking I'm looking too granular. Maybe I'm not looking at the bigger thing. So my problems before were time management. They were in our off market deals, which was, we saw that we had some pain points, so we put people in place. We have formed amazing alliances with other partners in our space. So there's always a solution. So now it's just finding. Yeah, you got me on that one. I guess that's my homework for you.
No problem. I guess maybe one last question before we wrap up. I'd love to hear, was there a near breaking point? Was there a problem that felt like the biggest problem you've encountered?
Yeah. That would have happened before my meeting with you. And it was, am I going to fold that bad hand because I'm working my ass off all day, like every day? I get out of my expensive suit, then I'm going to go look at a rental property and take care of that. The bank saying, well, good luck with getting a mortgage. And at that point, it's like, I was all alone. It was a lonely time. And then it was taking effect on my relationship, my new relationship, because I was never home, because now it was all about that and trying to explain, hey, I'm doing this for us. But at the same time, it's like, well, God forbid if they found asbestos in the property and I'd have to do that, where would I get the money from? Because here I'm paying $200,000 to my lawyers. I have this, I have that. Like, why am I even doing this? That was probably like that phase. And it's amazing, as they say, and is it Bruce Lee? I don't know who says it, that the teacher presents themselves when the student is ready. And man, he talked about timing. That was impeccable timing. And interestingly enough, as if I can talk on behalf of my business partner, Alex Solga, it's funny because we entered the same room together at the same time, and we were both in the same exact position. And for us, our teachers presented themselves. We were ready.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mark. And yeah, I think that's dated back to an old Buddha saying. I've always loved it because it is so true. I think it's very easy for us to overlook those opportunities overlook the profits and only see problems. And a lot of that truly is a mindset, right? All the information's out there. It's available for free on the internet. It's just a matter of whether you really believe in it, whether you're committed to putting in the hard work, and whether you're willing to go through whatever maybe short-term pain is involved with the gain on the other side that you're looking to get. So yeah, really appreciate you coming on the show and just kind of sharing your perspective, Mark. If people want to follow along with you on your journey, what's the best way to do so?
Sure. So you guys can follow me on Instagram. It's at 72 Mindset Investor. I'm on YouTube, 72 Mindset Investor. I have a podcast called 72 Mindset Investor. You just have to Google 72 Mindset Investor. You'll find me somewhere.
Awesome. Well, Mark, we really appreciate you coming on to today's Problems or Profits podcast. And we look forward to seeing what you accomplish and seeing you on your way to strive towards those big, hairy, audacious goals. So really appreciate you taking the time, and Problems or Profits.
Thank you.
Problems are what? Problems are profits!